Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle D'Souza Gill. I will be hosting Dinesh's podcast while he is away this week. If you're a regular Dinesh D'Souza podcast listener, you maybe have heard me on here before. I have guest hosted for him on here quite a few times, but it has been a little while. I am frequently busy being a mom to my daughter, as well as supporting my husband's campaign for U.S. Congress, where we live in North Texas. I am the author of 2 books, The Choice, The Abortion Divide in America, and Why God, an Intelligent Discussion on the Relevance of Faith. You can also find me on social media and many other places. But I always love coming on to guest host, and I have really missed being on the show. So yes, the best way you can find out more about me is to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, Rumble, X, all the places. I'm at Danielle D'Souza Gill. Beware, if you follow me on Facebook, I do post many times a day, so I will be blowing up your newsfeed, but it's all good stuff, all information that you need ASAP, so make sure to find me on Facebook. That's where you can find my content, videos, thoughts on everything. Okay, so we have a lot of content to get to today. Today, we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris and how her insincerity is backfiring on her. We're going to be talking about how the politics of guilt and shame are front and center in the Democrat Party right now. We will talk a little bit about Obama. We'll talk about Tim Walz. We will also speak with surprise guest Dinesh D'Souza, your favorite, about all kinds of things. I'll be interviewing him. I will be asking him about recent Trump rallies going on in the belly of the beast, like New York, California, other liberal states. We're going to talk about Tim Walz's attempt to be masculine hunting. We'll draw on some history from the past, his wealth of knowledge as usual, and I will maybe put him in the hot seat. So this will be fun. Stay with us. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Last Thursday, while on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris, Barack Obama chastised a crowd in Pennsylvania. He singled out the Black men in the audience and scolded them for not being enthusiastic enough about Harris. The former president chastised the crowd, saying, "You're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that," he said. "Because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that." Concerns about the economy, inflation, the border, rising crime, all of it is just a ruse, Obama implies. People are coming up with excuses to hide their sexist discomfort caused by a strong woman in a leadership role. I suppose he realized that calling the Black men in the audience racist would be a mistake, so he went with the left's second favorite smear. Hey, you're sexist. By all accounts, the economy really is flagging right now, and it is because of the Biden-Harris administration's own failures to do right by we, the American people. As much as they try to pretend like the economy is going great, anyone who has been to the grocery store recently and bought food can say otherwise. Acknowledging that reality in the privacy of your own thoughts is one thing, but President Obama reminded us that we are not allowed to complain out loud. We are certainly not allowed to complain about Kamala Harris, and certainly not if you're a Black man. In fact, Obama expects if you're a Black man for you to fall in line and simply do what he says. You are certainly not allowed to vote in a manner that would express your displeasure with the status quo. If we dare to speak out, we'll be scolded. Kamala Harris also castigates those who dare to blame the current administration for the state of the American economy. She's caught in the middle. She has to say that things are going well, that she was part of this amazing administration, Biden-Harris, but at the same time, she's trying to run as a change candidate. She's trying to act as though she's bringing something new. She's bringing change. She's bringing things forward. Well, sorry, Kamala, but if you can't afford groceries, then it must be the grocer's fault, is what she tells us. At a campaign event in Raleigh, North Carolina, Kamala said, quote, "As president, I will take on the high costs that matter most to most Americans, like the cost of food. We all know that prices went up during the pandemic when the supply chains shut down and failed, but our supply chains have improved and prices are still too high," she insisted. Harris has demanded that Congress pass a first-ever federal ban on this supposed price gouging among the food and grocery stores. Never mind that anyone with even a passing familiarity with the business world knows that grocers operate on the slimmest of profit margins of all, with the industry average being between 1% and 3%. That is far below other retail businesses, but high sales and inventory turnover keep profits at acceptable levels for grocers. This is general knowledge, so Harris's accusation against grocery stores is especially hard to swallow. We know she is lying, but maybe that's the point. We know that fundamentally, it isn't the fault of the stores or the manufacturers. It's not their fault that inflation is rampant. Energy prices are soaring, and our supply chains are broken. It's her fault. The policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have devastated the economy. By talking about price gouging, she's blaming hardworking, innocent people, casting them as villains when they're really just as much victims of her policies as the rest of us. Maybe she should talk more about inflation. She knows we know that it's a lie, but like all true bullies, that is part of her shtick. It is also dysfunctional, even abusive, for a candidate who is trying to claim the mantle of Mamala. She really ought to be less dishonest and less shrill. Granted, there was not much enthusiasm for the nickname, even on the left. Back in May, when Drew Barrymore, the talk show host and actress, introduced the idea on her show, saying, quote, "We need you to be Mamala of the country." The attempted rebranding was met with headlines such as the LA Times article entitled, quote, "Drew Barrymore urged VP Kamala Harris to be Mamala of the country." The internet recoiled. So not a ringing headline or endorsement, to be sure. These days, Mamala Dearest seems like a more apt nickname, like the rampaging Crawford played by Faye Dunaway in the 1981 movie Mommy Dearest. She screams, "No wire hangers ever," as she destroys everything, and then yells at her victims to clean up the mess. We Americans, like the hapless children in the movie, seem to be dealing with an overbearing scourge who likes to blame everyone but herself. Rumors of Kamala Harris's abusive behavior toward even her own staff have been bandied about over the years, coming mostly from her former staff members whose short tenures turned the revolving door of Kamala's office into an endlessly spinning turbine. Those reports did in fact cite her as abusive and impossible to work with. In July, the Daily Mail reported that former staffers referred to Harris as a, quote, "soul-destroying bully who frequently subjected her employees to degrading tirades, and that her decades-long toxic behavior left people in tears and saw them quit at unprecedented levels." What we're seeing in this economic blame game is just more of the same. Public examples of Mamala Dearest's preferred method of problem solving. Realizing that she loses to Trump on the issues of the economy, which is the top issue for voters, Mamala Dearest decided to expound on her economic plan more in late September. The handful of wealthy women who attended the glitzy Oprah Winfrey hosted Unite for America Zoom event on September 19th all confirmed afterwards that Kamala Harris was indeed raised middle class, a fact she mentioned several times in her odd word salad ramblings. On the Harris Walz website, their plans to foster this opportunity economy consists mainly of reminding the voters again that Harris, whose mother holds a doctorate and researches cancer and whose father is a wealthy economics professor emeritus at Stanford, grew up middle class. The website claims her administration will, quote, "build an opportunity economy and lower costs for all families." In the very next sentence, the site assures us, quote, Vice President Harris grew up in a middle-class home as the daughter of a working mom. She believes that when the middle class is strong, America is strong. That's why, as president, Kamala Harris will create an opportunity economy where everyone has a chance to compete and a chance to succeed, where they live in a rural area, small town, or big city. The site concludes. But what is this coming up with an economic plan mere weeks before Election Day? Not to mention, she is in the White House currently. She is currently the Vice President of the United States. The Biden-Harris ticket has been in office for 4 years. She should be knee-deep in not just economic plans, but action. And this constant trope that she grew up in a middle-class family, that really doesn't ring true. Doesn't she care enough about the American people to fix the problem hurting so many Americans? To be honest, I don't think most people care whether or not she grew up middle class or not. I mean, President Trump, he's wildly successful, but people just care about the results. They care about their own lives improving. They care about themselves being lifted out of the middle class or moving from poverty to the middle class. They don't care about her virtue signaling and acting as though she can wear this as a badge of honor when it's not really true. And she's also not doing anything to actually help the American people. It's like she's oblivious. She has passed out on the couch, on the floor, strewn with overturned half-empty bottles of smug. Is Mamala Dearest, like all dysfunctional abusers, indifferent to the suffering of those she claims to love? Mamala Dearest, don't you love the American people? Add to this the fact that when polled, most Americans want economic stability more than some pie-in-the-sky promise. Orrin Cass at American Compass explains, quote, the elite often emphasize opportunity, mobility, noting that while some people may be down 1 year, many of them will be up again the next. The flip side, though, is that people up 1 year may be down the next. And most don't have the elite's cushion. They don't have the idea that, maybe this will be them next time. They don't have the financial capital to carry them through. Many people don't have an emergency fund. Ask Americans whether they care more about financial stability or upward mobility. And by 10-1, they will choose the former, Cass said. Cass is referring here to a Pew Research poll from 2015, which found in a survey of 7,000 people that 9 in 10 Americans favor financial stability over upward mobility. So this tells us that many Americans, they just want their life to stay the same, at least not get worse. They just want to make sure that they can continue going to the job that they're at. They want to provide for their family. They want to have food on the table. They want to maybe enjoy the weekend, but they're not saying, hey, I'm just going to change my life tomorrow. No, they just want to have a good life. They want to have the American dream. They want to just be stable. And yet Kamala Harris can't even speak to that. Now, I think this vision of upward mobility is great. But again, a lot of what Kamala Harris says, it's pure word salad. It doesn't make any sense. And it's not rooted in any kind of reality. Most Americans right now are suffering. They don't have the same things they used to have a year ago. Prices are up. So once again, Mamala Dearest is promising something that those in her care simply are not clamoring for. We Americans make our own way in the world through hard work, and we certainly do not need the government to be supporting everyone. But this isn't a case where Kamala can just come around and hand things out like candy as a prize for casting the correct vote. I don't know if you remember the Obama phone, Obama giving people phones. It's like, it doesn't work like that. That doesn't change people's lives. Though it is an improvement, to be sure, for people to have something. She did speak to someone about the economy, even if it was just with some leftist media elites, billionaires such as Oprah Winfrey and the like. It's good that she has something to say about her economic plan because at least it's something. I mean, most of the time, Kamala Harris doesn't even do interviews. Most of the time, she's hiding under a rock. She's done far less interviews than Trump and Vance. But when she does speak about her plans, we can see she really has no plan. We see her plans are unpopular. They're nonsensical. However, her odd refusal to do a real interview, to speak off the cuff, to even speak about something so simple as the number one issue Americans care about, or to interact with reporters, is especially off-putting because President Trump is always available to talk about his policies. He can talk about them for hours. He does long rallies. He does extensive interviews. He's gone on various podcasts. And so if you want to know what Trump's thoughts are on something, you can surely find out. Furthermore, President Trump courageously exposes himself to the most hostile venues, to the most hostile interviewers, but he does it because it's worth it to reach the American people and to reach new voters that he wouldn't otherwise reach. He knows that every vote counts and that every mind changed counts, and he's willing to be put under the gun. He's willing to be under fire and in the hot seat. And we've seen this time and time again, how well Trump handles it and what a great job he does. And J.D. Vance actually does very well too. He has a different style, a different approach, but he's extremely intelligent, and he handled the VP debate so well. He's handled interviews really well, despite getting a lot of flack from the media who are trying to make him sound like a weirdo and all of this. J.D. Vance has done a great job. So they go into hostile territory. They have the hope of getting their message out. They want to debunk the media's lies to reach a broader range of voters. Most impressive, though, has to be President Trump's bravery in returning to Butler, Pennsylvania. He returned to the rally venue where the first assassination attempt on his life was made. President Trump began his speech in Butler with, quote, "As I was saying," and he then proceeded to finish the speech on immigration reform. The speech that would be the assassination cut short. Even after 2 assassination attempts and being shot, he still conducts outdoor rallies. But Kamala Harris will not even deign to take an unscripted question from the fawning media who are working hard to get her elected. President Trump reaches out to us even at his own peril, while Mamala Dearest wants to keep us in the dark closet of ignorance. Mamala Dearest, why won't you let us out of the closet? Something tells me we're not going to like what we see when she finally lets us out to see the truth. The more you know about Kamala, the more you're not going to like her. The more interviews she does, the more her approval ratings go down. That's why recently in an NBC poll, we see that President Trump and Kamala Harris are tied. A lot of the previous polls showed Kamala a bit ahead. So if the polls are now showing that Trump and Kamala are neck and neck, that's a good thing in my opinion, because Trump frequently outperforms the polling data. Frequently, many Trump supporters are not polled. A lot of them don't pick up the phone. They don't respond to pollsters because some of them don't want to say they're Trump supporters and so on. Whereas many liberals, they love being polled. They love saying their thoughts on everything. So I think this is great news, the new polls. But Mamala Dearest is by no means the only source of Democrat dysfunction, but she is characteristic of the party's overall abusive attitude. Hillary Clinton, she gives off the same kind of attitude, know-it-all, acts like she's in charge of everything. Half of their party is being terrorized by the left's hysterical lies, while the other half has been browbeaten into submission. The voices of rational Democrats are brutally eradicated through non-primaries of staged competitors, superdelegates, and nullified votes. Remember, Kamala Harris basically was part of a coup to get rid of Joe Biden even being the nominee. Kamala Harris didn't even make it very far in the primaries. So just keep that in mind. Speak out against rampant illegal immigration, and you might find yourself the subject of an FBI investigation. A party that thinks it can get away with abusing its own voters is also a party that thinks it can get away with savaging the country as a whole and anyone who they deem as an opponent. Think about how long they kept up the pretense that Joe Biden was fine. Think about how long they were lying to us in the media, saying that if you were to even bring up the idea that Joe Biden was mentally not well, you were a horrible person, and they were coming up with excuses for why he was fumbling and not knowing where he was going. Look at how long they kept that going. They pretended there was no problem. Jill Biden, of course, was at the front of that, but also his press secretaries, all of his staff, everyone who was around him, who saw what he was like in person, put out these lies, and all of the mainstream media, they went to bat for him. They put out the lies too, trying to bolster up Joe Biden just because they wanted to pull him across the finish line. And once they saw that presidential debate, they knew there was absolutely no way it was going to happen. They knew that, wow, this is not even something we can lie to people about anymore because they've seen too much of it straight in the eyes. They've seen too much of it unedited. And unfortunately, we can't cover for him anymore. Some of them tried. Some of them tried to cover for him. Even Obama was trying to cover for him, saying, oh, yeah, we all have bad debate nights. I know that. But Joe Biden is great. Even Kamala Harris coming to his defense, pretending like Joe Biden was fine. And I remember Anderson Cooper asking her, is she always like this? Is he always like this? And she couldn't answer because she knew that the answer was yes, Joe Biden is always like this, probably sometimes worse. And they were covering for him. So look at how long they were willing to lie to the American people. Look at how long they were willing to pretend that there's no problem with what was going on, and were willing to censor people who brought up not just a counter opinion, but the truth about Joe Biden. Look at how long they were lying about what's been going on at the border, despite widespread and desperate pleas for help. Remember the baby formula behind lock and key in stores because of rampant supply chain issues? Or the unpopular electric vehicle mandate? Mamala, dearest, are gas engines the new wire hangers? Is that why we can't have any more gas-powered cars? And like most abusive people, the longer this behavior goes unchecked, the greater danger they pose to themselves. Russia is rattling nuclear sabers, China is licking their chops over Taiwan, and the Middle East has never been more volatile. Yet here at home, our troops are completely demoralized, the military is at record lows for enlistment, Mamala, dearest, and the Democrats are poised to bring the entire country, if not the world, down around our ears, and we have to brace for World War III. All they can do is cackle, like they have nothing to do with the situation. Kamala just keeps up that cackle, keeps up that laugh, that horrible cackling laugh, and the stuff, as Kamala Harris likes to call our problems, will only continue to get worse until we stand up for ourselves. Abusers are bullies. As long as you don't give them what they want, they learn their lesson and move on to their next victim. Usually someone sympathetic and gullible. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe Canada, a place where she actually lived. If someone is dysfunctional and wants to fight, you deny them the satisfaction of an argument. And if they want power, you take that power away from them. With Mamala, dearest, and the Democrats, it's not that complicated. Which is why we have to go out and vote. When you do this and you vote for Republicans, you deprive them of any mandate until they can show that they've got their problem under control. The cure for dysfunction is to stop rewarding it. Giving Mamala, dearest, the White House doesn't send a message to the Democrats that they'll be successful if they tract the non-suicidal middle like they've been promising they will do if only we'll vote for Mamala. Success will only embolden them. And you'll find that after they win, which I hope they don't, but if they do, their lies will get even worse. They will consider the American people to be absolutely out of their minds, and the lies will get pretty bad, even worse than the ones that they told previously. They will be so brazen, they will just have completely no respect for the American people because they'll see that what they did worked. The victim cycle stops when America turns to Mamala, dearest, to collectively utter a firm no. That's when we get away from all of these words that begin with her, I'm no longer burdened by what has been or whatever. Her dysfunction, disinformation, disrespect, dismay. Let's trade these words we don't want to hear and find our way to the one word we can't get enough of. And that's liberty.
Mike Lindell is such a good guy. He's got a heart of gold, and Mike and MyPillow love giving back to those in need. They sent a truckload of 14,000 MyPillows to those impacted by Hurricane Helene. But even though Mike loves to give back, a large retail store just canceled a huge order that had already left the warehouse. So besides giving to those in need, Mike wants to pass some savings directly on to you. For the first time ever, you can get a standard classic MyPillow for wholesale prices, just $14.88. It gets better. For a limited time, they're offering their entire classic collection at wholesale prices. So get a queen size My Pillows, $18.88. Upgrade to a king for only $1 more. Get the body pillows for just $29.88, and multi-use My Pillows for $9.88. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code Dinesh, or you can call 800-876-0227. Again, it's 800-876-0227 to take advantage of the wholesale pricing for the first time ever. On top of that, get free shipping on orders over $75. The deals haven't been offered this low before. So once again, go to mypillow.com, use promo code Dinesh, get the standard MyPillow, $14.88, the lowest price ever. By the way, limited quantities at this price, so once they're gone, they're gone. I want you to order Balance of Nature fruits and veggies in a capsule, but before you do that, wait till you hear what I have to say. If you go to balanceofnature.com, you'll check out these. This is their popular fruit and veggie supplements, fruit and veggies in a capsule. But you might see a discount offer pop up. It may say 20% or 25% off your first order. Well, don't click that. Why? Because if you use my promo code, you'll get 35% off your first order plus free shipping. The special code is simply the word America. Use the code and save big. Here's another bonus. Balance of Nature has a risk-free money-back guarantee. So go ahead and find out for yourself what I already know. There's no other product out there like Balance of Nature when it comes to fruit and veggie supplements. Whether you order online or call direct, you got to use promo code America to get the special offer, 35% off and free shipping. Here's the number to call, 800-246-8751. Again, 800-246-8751, or go to balanceofnature.com. When you use discount code America, you get 35% off and free shipping. FDNY firefighter Daniel Foley assisted in rescue and recovery efforts at Ground Zero, but Daniel couldn't have known then that his heroism would cost him his life more than 18 years later. His death, like so many others, resulted from 9/11 related illnesses caused by the toxic dust that formed when the Twin Towers collapsed. Victims and first responders are still suffering and dying from 9/11, yet children in this nation are growing up unaware of America's darkest day. That's why the Tunnel to Towers 9/11 Institute is helping educators teach children about 9/11. Tunnel to Towers 9/11 curriculum units have scripted lessons, background for teachers, and activities for students. They're based on first-person accounts and designed to meet academic standards. The 9/11 Institute offers the Discovering Heroes book series, a speakers bureau, a mobile exhibit with 9/11 artifacts, and memorial scholarships for the children of the Foundation's program recipients. Help our nation keep its promise to never forget. How can you help? Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
I am delighted to welcome our surprise guest today. Surprise! Dinesh D'Souza on the Dinesh D'Souza podcast. Now, usually he is in the interviewing chair, usually bringing on other guests to the show. So I thought it would be interesting for us to pick his brain a little bit, to have him on the other side of things. So thanks for joining us.
Well, you've also caught me in a moment of informality. I'm wearing my purple shorts, which are a little controversial in the state of Texas.
Look for you. Corduroys, no matter whether they're shorts or pants, are always in the Dinesh closet.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start by you telling us a little bit of an update on Vindicating Trump.
Well, it's a big day for the film because it is it's in streaming now, which means that you can stream the movie on multiple platforms. It's available on Salem now. It's available on Locals, on Rumble. But the one-stop shop remains the same, vindicatingtrump.com. DVDs are also shipping today, so great time to grab the DVDs. And again, the DVDs, go to vindicatingtrump.com. You'll see a tab to order DVDs, and they're good for gifts as well.
Okay, good idea. So you can give those out to friends and maybe out to people before the election. It's fun.
That's the time. That's when they are most powerful, right? Because the film makes the case. I think it rallies the Trump supporter, but it also is very persuasive to people in the middle or even wavering Republicans who say things like, well, I don't know about Trump. I do like his policies, but I'm not sure about the man. This film is a defense of Trump, the policies, and the man.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like at this point, Trump is showing his strength? I mean, we've seen recently, I think an NBC poll showed that Trump and Harris are tied now, but previous polling was showing Harris was ahead of Trump. So do you feel like this is pretty encouraging? I mean, should the polls be showing that Trump is even more ahead, or what do you kind of make of that recent polling?
Well, I think at one level, it is disturbing that these two candidates who are widely disparate ability, Trump is a superior candidate, Harris is a horrible candidate. So it's a bad statement on the country that they're so close. However, before we go around blaming the low IQ of the American people, it's worth noting that a lot of people in the middle get a constant diet of media propaganda. They don't hear the conservative side. They're being pummeled by the mainstream media. So it's actually creditable that so many people are able to see through the fog. Mm-hmm. And I do think that a very important change that we see now, the left had been pretty successful in making Trump a pariah in the past. Mm-hmm. And many, athletes, people in kind of in the cool spheres of American life were a little reluctant to be associated with Trump. And there's some of that that's still there, but I'm amazed to see, I think I just saw today, a big quarterback came out and endorsed Trump. So Trump is picking up a lot of support, and some of it in unexpected quarters.
Yes, we wouldn't know the name of this person because we don't watch sports here, but well,
I do follow. I don't follow sports, but I do follow Trump's endorsements. So.
Yeah, no, of course. But it's cool because so many people, I think, are realizing, especially after the assassination attempts, I think that at a certain point, you just have to say if you support Trump, and you can't just be afraid all the time and not say that you support him, because look how crazy the country has become, and look at what things have come to.
Well, and his own fearlessness sets an example. I want to make a point about Trump and courage, because the philosopher Aristotle said that courage is not what people think it is. A lot of people think courage is like he's fearless. That's a very common phrase I hear. Trump is fearless. But Aristotle says no, the fearless guy is the reckless guy. Mm-hmm. If some guy goes to a precipice and jumps off, he's fearless, but he doesn't know there are rocks below. He's foolish, right? So on the one extreme, says Aristotle, you have the fearless or reckless man. At the other extreme, you have the over-timid or cowardly man. Mm-hmm. The courageous man has fear, but the courageous man is on a mission, is on a task, and is willing to take the risk. So he doesn't overcome the fear. He has to cope with it. But he's willing to undertake it because he's after something larger. I think that's Trump.
Wow, that is so true. What are some other things? So this kind of reminds me of the movie Vindicating Trump. What are some other things in the movie or scenes you looked at or things that didn't make it into the film that you think pointed to something either interesting about Trump, or maybe were just kind of something different or unique? But, of course, with the editing, not everything makes it.
Well, I'd like to point out that the film has these elaborate recreations, and they're very amusing. A lot of people find them extremely entertaining. But the recreations are quite prophetic. And by that, I mean, we have sections in the film where people are discussing, we tried the character assassination, we tried the lawfare. We need to stop this guy permanently. In one case, we have Nick Searcy, who plays the intelligence chief. He's looking at a chessboard, and he takes the king and he topples it over, which is to say he's making an allusion to a fairly explicit allusion to assassination. And all of this was shot before the first assassination attempt. So because some people say, hey, Dinesh, you were very fortunate, and it is true, that you were able to interview Trump after the assassination attempt. True. And Trump is talking about all this. So that's very timely in the movie, but there's no way we could have shot the recreations at that late stage.
Yeah.
So those happen to just be on point, on target, and it looks like we completed the film like yesterday.
Yeah. And I will say, too, I think your interview with Trump is different because Trump has been doing a lot of other interviews, and he's done pretty extensive interviews at times. But I think his ones with you are pretty unique because you have unique questions and different angles of getting at things, and sometimes that other people don't always bring out all these different sides of President Trump. So
anyone who's on the campaign trail is going to have a shtick, a set of pat answers. And if Trump is asked things that make him in any way uncomfortable, he goes to the shtick. I mean, that's a normal thing to do. He doesn't like to be psychologized. He doesn't like to talk about his feelings. So if you want to ask him about his feelings, you have to ask him about something else that makes him answer in that way.
I see.
And
don't just say,
you don't say, right. In fact, Dr. Phil asked him very explicitly, how do you make you feel? And you can see that Trump runs away from that kind of approach. He doesn't want to be introspective. He's just not made that way. But I do think that he let me control the trajectory of the interview. And a lot of people have commented that it's the most unique conversation they've seen with Trump.
Right. And he is very empathetic. He has feelings, of course. He has empathy for people, but he just doesn't speak in a way that's, as you've said, maybe Dr. Phil-esque in that sense. Do you feel like as we get closer to the election day that, Trump is going in the right direction? We've seen recently he's been doing a lot of events in California, New York. He's been going in the liberal states, places where he's, maybe not going to win in the Electoral College. So
why is he doing it? So I think if you watch the two campaigns, in the Kamala campaign, you can see fear. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is, here's their problem. They need to put Kamala out to reach constituencies she's not reaching. The problem is she's such a freak that when you do that, those constituencies become more antagonistic. So as a result, their strategy is let's send her to The View. Let's send her to, either Jimmy Fallon. Let's send her to
a few kind
Stephen
of
Colbert. People who will actually... Exactly. They will coddle her. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is she looks bad even there. Mm-hmm. Now, Trump, on the other hand, no candidate who is running close in swing states is going to be in New York and California campaigning unless they believe the momentum is in their favor. Mm-hmm. Because that is an act of unbelievable boldness. Yeah. It's sort of like, I'm going to invade your home. It's like in the Civil War when, there was a time when the Confederates decided, we're not just going to fight in the South. Yeah. We're going to invade Maryland and Pennsylvania. Ultimately, that led to Gettysburg, and of course, the Confederates lost. But it was a bold move by Lee. Mm-hmm. Robert E. Lee was always, let's go on offense. Trump is on offense.
He's on offense, yeah. And do you think maybe liberal states that are maybe closer will be impacted by this? Maybe we will be able to take a few unexpected states because, California and New York, that'd be great, but those are a little bit tricky. But maybe it also fires up people there to flip some seats, maybe where he's thinking about down ballot races, maybe also the media narrative, because people are kind of taken aback if he's in Madison Square Garden. Maybe there'll be a lot of press and he knows that that's national press.
Not to mention if Trump can pull 100,000 people in Coachella, California, that's impressive. That's not supposed to be his home turf. So I think that's one reason. You're right. I think he's also campaigning for House and Senate seats. And that is important because if Trump gets in, there's a pretty good chance we will get the House and the Senate. Mm-hmm. And that will be a new era in America. Yeah. This is, I think, why Obama got so freaked out about not just the possibility of Kamala losing, because I think all of this ultimately is about the Obama remaking of America. A Trump victory was a setback in 2016. It will be an even bigger setback in 2024.
Right. So you, of course, are no friend of Obama's. So what did you make of Obama approaching the crowd of Pennsylvania? He said to a lot of Black men, basically saying, bullying them, vote for Kamala, because she's a woman. And so you mustn't be sexist was kind of his implication. So what do you think of that strategy? I mean, is that an effective way to get people to do what you want them to do?
Well, let's start with the optics of it. When I first heard about Obama bullying these Black men, I thought somehow, here's Obama going to come in like a prize fighter. If you actually look at the video, first of all, I'm waiting for him to announce he has AIDS. The guy was like feeble. He looked gaunt. He looked weak. If you listen to his voice, it has no tone to it, no energy to it.
He was kind of trying to sound like he was vibing with them.
Right. And no, it wasn't working. In fact, if you look at the faces of the three black guys behind him, they're looking at it like they have skepticism written all over their face.
Right.
And we counted what he's actually saying. And I think it has backfired big time. It's backfired big time because, first of all, the idea that a guy who has done nothing for black men. I mean, this is not a guy who was ever seen in the ghetto or the inner city during either of his two terms. He did no improvements for essentially the standard of living of these black men, particularly in the inner city. So those are the guys who are basically saying, we've tried out your team. You were the first black president. You actually inspired us with the hope that something would change. Well, we're now going to give the other guy a try. In fact, one of these black guys making a video, he goes, I'm going to be voting for, and I forget how he put it, but it was something like, I'm going to be voting for, Donald J. Von Trump. Well, what he was getting at is that Trump he's speaking whimsically, but that Trump may do better for blacks. I think he will, and he did.
Right.
So I think the Obama thing has actually provoked a lot of inner city blacks. Mm-hmm. This is not when I was on the Reagan years, we would see black guys come to the Republican convention, but they were typically like, professor at Pomona College, some guy with a bow tie, obviously, or some black guy who's like a realtor in the suburbs. But now what you're seeing blacks from the whole spectrum, the socioeconomic spectrum. Yeah. I mean, and so I think the beauty of this is it's one thing if Trump won the election by drawing the white working class. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's drawing the Hispanic and black working class is even more impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing about Trump is he really does draw people regardless of skin color, because he speaks to so many people of so many different backgrounds. But yet, like you were saying, it doesn't really matter if they're black or white or Hispanic. I think his numbers with Hispanics have gone up a lot recently, even from 2016 to 2020 to 2024. We're seeing with black, especially men, that they're supporting Trump in more record numbers. What do you think it is about men that's leading them to wake up? Because I think to myself, why are women even voting for Kamala Harris? Because it's just...
Well, I think what happens is Trump is a kind of an alpha male. He represents strength. And it's not that women don't like strength. But what happens is women recognize that strength can be toxic, can be abused, right? Anyone who's strong can knock you down in general. So the left has done so much to try to demonize Trump and demonize the strength that he represents. Right. In the sense that the propaganda on Trump is that you're better off with a beta male, mm-hmm. like Doug Emhoff, who is basically Kamala Harris's husband, or Tim Walz. I mean, Tim Walz is a beta male. And so that's the sort of the neo-masculinity. Of course, this is not working at all. No. But the Democrats have been trying to sell it. But I think for men, they realize that, we actually need more manliness in America. But manliness is not the left's caricature. The left's caricature of it, manliness is like a cartoon figure who like comes in and like beats everybody up. Whereas for Trump, manliness is something like, manliness can be very gentle. Manliness can be, I'll make sacrifices for my family. Mm-hmm. So it is this definition of manliness that we're trying to restore. And I think that Trump is effectively conveying. Wow. This was the meaning of, we see it in the film as well. You see Trump strong, but he's measured, he's reflective. There's a kind of gentility to him. Mm-hmm. And I think, people say the left says Trump is a bully. But I think what's interesting is Trump only bullies bullies. Yes. He doesn't bully doormen. He doesn't bully waiters. He doesn't bully cab drivers. I don't know if you saw that video. Tim Walz is walking on the street. Some Trumpster yells out. He gives him the middle finger. Now, Trump would never do that. So I think Trump is doing a good job of selling not just the policies. People are okay with the policies. He has to sell Trump the man. And we do it in the film, I think, very effectively. But Trump is doing a good job of it as well.
Yeah, no, he's doing a great job. And I think also, the masculinity message that the Democrats are peddling with, Tim Walz pretending to be hunting and not being able to load his shotgun while he's out there and doing a video for social media. That's their idea of masculinity. Do you think that hits with anyone?
It reminds me of, you're too young, but so when Michael Dukakis ran against George H.W. Bush in 1988, now Michael Dukakis is this short Greek guy, right? And he looks like a bit of a twerp, right? He wasn't a bad guy, but he was a little short. And of course, Bush is tall, and it was the Cold War. And so essentially, even though Bush wasn't all that masculine, he kind of inherited the masculinity from Reagan and from the facts of the situation. So Dukakis decided, I got to seem very manly. So what he did was he found an old military tank and he sat in it, but he's so short that his head was sort of sticking out like a dwarf. And it actually backfired on him. People started making jokes and cartoons. Well, this is what Tim Walz's thing reminded me of, because he goes out pheasant hunting. First of all, he's completely surrounded by reporters, because they all know, they're all playing along with the scene. Tim Walz and then first of all, most of the time they're walking around, none of them have any guns. So it's like, what kind of hunting trip is this? Finally, Tim Walz gets a shotgun, but it's quite clear he's like never handled it. He doesn't really know what he's doing. Yeah. And he's like, and people who are comfortable with rifles, have been hunting before, they know that this is all for the optics. So right now, I think it's the authenticity of Trump and J.D. Vance on the one hand, and the inauthenticity of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on the other.
Right. No, they're definitely very inauthentic. And I think that Tim Walz, he had this big pop at the beginning because the media was pushing him and making it seem like this really nice football coach, kind of school teacher guy. But then I think over time, the more people see him, the more it fades, because it gets a little annoying. It's a little more like nails on a chalkboard, very similar to Kamala Harris. They, keep on trying to build her up. But then the more interviews she does, the more you see of Kamala, the more you don't like her, the more you realize she doesn't have much to say. She doesn't have a lot of thoughts. So what do you make about the discrepancy between Kamala's number of interviews and Trump's?
Well, let me put it this way. The American people are very smart at a certain thing. And the proof of this is actually movies. Play a complex whodunit. And the viewer in a dark room is very quick to say, oh, that's the main suspect, but you know what? He didn't do it. It's going to have to be that guy. And they're attentive to clues, and they're able to figure it out. And what I'm getting at is that people have a generally fairly high psychological quotient. So it's not maybe an IQ, but it's like a PQ, or it's an EQ, an emotional quotient. And they're able to pick up. Well, first of all, with Kamala Harris, you don't have to be any kind of a genius to realize when you ask her a question of any sophistication, she does not know what to say. And not only now, sometimes when people don't know what to say, they lapse into a thoughtful silence. She doesn't do that. She just starts speaking. And her speech is just nonsense talk. It's basically what we used to call gobbledygook. And it's very easy to pick up both the fact that she knows nothing and she knows that she knows nothing.
Yeah.
And so it's only the overeducated, sort of college-educated PhD type of liberal who reads into her and says, oh, you know what, she's maybe getting at this, or she's maybe getting at that. Actually, she's not. She's never thought of any of those things.
No.
So she's vacuous, but she is a street smart opportunist, as Obama was.
Okay. So is that kind of what you make of her interview with Oprah, where I think she said in it, if someone breaks into my house, I'd shoot him. And then she goes, well, I'll let my team deal with that later, as if she sort of misspoke and flubbed. But then at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, why is that going to be an issue for your team to deal with? Why is that a problem? You said that. But then also, is that something she'd mean to say? Is she trying to act like she's more center and normal? Or what is she trying to do there?
Right. So she, the same person who opened up the border along with Biden and was completely okay with that and was, in a sense, in charge of the border, if she didn't have the title of border czar, nevertheless, is now trying to say, I'm a tough prosecutor. I will take care of the illegal problem. Similarly, she's now trying to appeal to gun owners. I remember Pennsylvania has a lot of hunting. It's a gun state. So she's trying to say, I own a gun. She's never said what kind of a gun. She's not given any details. I suspect she doesn't own a gun. But even if she does own a gun, this is all posturing on her part. And it's all very short term. It's almost like, in some ways, in a representative democracy, the kind of system we have now, in a direct democracy, by the way, the citizens would meet constantly. So the citizens could always step in and decide, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. So in ancient Athens, for example, out of the 40,000 citizens, there were about 12,000. They would show up in person and they would vote. In a representative democracy, we have these tiny windows of 2 years and 4 years. And the politicians think, no worries. We will do a massive song and dance routine. We have the media to play the chorus and the applause machine. And if we can flummox the voters and fool them for a short time, then it's out of their hands and it's back into our control. So people have to realize they have a narrow window to administer a necessary beating. So if you don't like the way the country's going, you need to go with your instinct and throw the bums out. And don't listen to any other distracting nonsense.
Absolutely. A little bit of a change of gears, but we've also seen recently Kamala Harris kind of stuck in this difficult spot with the Israel issue. So she's, of course, trying to win the Muslim vote. She's trying to get a lot of those people in Michigan. And I guess, but at the same time, Biden has been saying, he supports Israel. And of course, probably some of Kamala's donors are supporters of Israel. So how do you think she's faring on that issue? Do you think she's threading the needle well on that? Where do you see that coming out?
I think she's trying to do what Bill Clinton used to do. It used to be called triangulation. So triangulation is essentially to be pro-Israel enough that you don't lose the Jewish vote, you don't lose Jewish donors, and you don't lose some powerful Jews in media and in Hollywood that you need to keep on your side. At the same time, you are sufficiently anti-colonial, pro-Palestine. So for a while that Kamala thought she had the recipe, and even Biden, the same recipe. What's the recipe? Be pro-Israel, but anti-Netanyahu. The problem is, Netanyahu has just pulled off the spectacular decimation of the Hezbollah leadership. He's wiped out not only Sheikh Nasrallah, but the entire top leadership, so much so that the new guy that they offered the job declined because he won his head on the chopping block. So suddenly Netanyahu is a kind of a hero in Israel, and all kinds of people who don't like him say, I don't like Netanyahu, but guess what? Just like we've been attacking him for 10 different things, we have to credit him with this spectacular operation, which has delivered to Israel the chance of a total victory. So now it's very awkward for Kamala, because if she now tries to play the middle, it's kind of like saying, I'm going to deprive Israel when it's on the verge of being able to knock out not just the Iranian proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, but maybe knock out the Iranian leadership itself. This opportunity doesn't come along all that often.
Yeah, and it's crazy because in many ways it seems like the Democrats, as much as they want to talk about abortion, the more that they actually talk about the Israel-Palestine issue, the more they lose ground. Because that issue is a loser for them because they have to find this difficult spot. And I think a lot of Democrats have wide-ranging views on it. There are some people who are wildly progressive. They think that Israel is evil, and then other people who maybe they should be Republicans now, but who are Democrats who support Israel. So I think she's going to have a difficult time with this issue.
Yeah, it's worth discussing something about the abortion issue here, because it's very reminiscent of the 1860 campaign with regard to slavery. So in the 1860 campaign with Lincoln, there was a pro-slavery Democrat, Breckinridge, running in the South. There was Stephen Douglas running in the North as a Northern Democrat. So it's a three-man race, basically. But Stephen Douglas was popular sovereignty. Let everybody decide for themselves. Lincoln's view was popular sovereignty to a point, meaning let the South decide for itself, but no slavery in the new territories. But the interesting thing is that Lincoln tacked very much to the center for the election. And I say this because that's what Trump is doing, right? Trump is tacking more to the center and essentially saying, look, I've already decentralized the issue to the states. And Trump even sometimes sounds a more moderate note. But you have to realize that the objective of doing this, Lincoln was vehemently anti-slavery. Lincoln was as anti-slavery as any abolitionist. But Lincoln did run as an abolitionist. And this is very important to keep in mind. This is something that some of the pro-lifers who are bashing Trump don't see, that that to elect Kamala Harris would be like collecting Breckinridge. In other words, a rabidly pro-slavery, in this case, pro-abortion candidate. And to do that, even the abolitionists weren't that dumb, is my point. The abolitionists ultimately got behind Lincoln because they knew whatever you say, Lincoln may not be as anti-slavery as they were.
Yeah.
But on the balance, he certainly was anti-slavery in results.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's no question if you're pro-life, Kamala Harris is not even an option. She was part of going after the people who whistle blew on Planned Parenthood and California.
Selling body parts.
Yes, I mean, that's horrific. You would think that she could say, wow, this is unsightly. But no, Kamala Harris said, I'm going to go after the people who exposed this, as opposed to the organization Planned Parenthood who was doing it. I mean, that's just one example. But of course, targeting crisis pregnancy centers, Kamala Harris is obviously pro-abortion at any point. And when asked on the question, all she really says is, and I think liberal interviewers have asked her this about abortion, she just says, we need to bring back Roe. We need to bring back Roe. And everyone will say, well, what do you think about this number of weeks? And then she'll just go right back to Roe because she doesn't want to say, I'm good with any weeks.
No, Tim Walz says something like, keep your hands off my body and all this kind of stuff. But the thing to remember is that is not the Democrats' position. Mm-hmm. They are entirely for keeping their hands on your body in all kinds of ways. Yeah. Whether, from the military draft to vaccine mandates to mask mandates to all kinds of restrictions that government imposes, essentially conditions for all kinds of things. So they don't have this libertarian, let people make up their own mind view. They only have that view on abortion.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this very great conversation. We will have it again soon, but of course you can always listen to Dinesh regularly on the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
The radical left is working overtime to gain control of the Supreme Court. They want to end lifetime tenure so they can end the court's conservative majority. Well, we've seen this script before. Remember when Hugo Chavez reformed Venezuela's Supreme Court? Debbie and I have had this discussion many times. She's warned me about Chavez's destruction of Venezuela by destroying the court. After that, he never lost a ruling or an election because he packed the court, and that ensured that Venezuela would never be a free or capitalist country again. Now, more than a decade after his death, Venezuela is still in tyranny and chaos. So we can't let that happen here. If we lose the court, we lose the country. And that's why my friends at First Liberty are fighting to save the court. And you can help them. To win the fight, they need 1 million patriots like you to join them. How do you join? Learn more at supremecoup.com. That's supremecoup.com/Dinesh. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing ShareRight. It's healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. Forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. So think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. Empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh. That's shareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way.
Well, that wraps up today's show. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to find me on social media. I am Danielle D'Souza Gill on all the platforms. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, X, True Social, Rumble, all of the spots. I'm at Danielle D'Souza Gill. That is where you can find my videos, content, thoughts on things. I would love to see you guys on there. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. MAGA.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.